everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Dr. Carmen Bryant, and welcome back to Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. This is a channel with many subscribers from all across the nation, and I want you to know I am so appreciative that you guys are here with me. Now, we have new subscribers, and I thank each and every one of you, each and every one of you for joining us in this tribe. And I've had some questions that were posed. I'm going to answer two of them. One is what type of qualification or what kind of training do I suggest for those that are seeking to go into providing services, counseling, or coaching to individuals that have been victims of or have survived narcissist abuse. And number two, the second question is what is the difference between coaching and counseling? Okay, so allow me to answer number two first, and then I'll answer number one. So the first one is coaching and counseling. So counseling, those of you that are in the mental health field, counseling in most states requires a master's degree in some type of psychology with an emphasis in either marriage and family therapy, mental health services, mental health, and it requires an internship. And so a master's degree is usually 2 years, but you have to have a bachelor's degree to go into the master's degree program, or you do dual degrees. And so you do have an internship in which you actually apply what you've learned in school. And so some of the things that you learn in school, number one is how to read and understand the diagnostic and statistical manual of psychiatric disorders. I think that was correct. And in that class, you learn assessment, diagnosis, and treatment planning. So you learn symptoms, you see what the symptoms look like, and you learn how to group the symptoms and do diagnosis, how mental health disorders are grouped, how to determine, how to ask questions, and how to do intakes and assessment to find out, what depressive symptoms there are, bipolar disorder, Also, you also learn about abnormal psychology, you learn about psychopharmacology, which is the med portion of for med, like med providers, to understand what medications do and what symptoms medication treat and what kind of medication are out there and what it looks like when they're in compliance and not in compliance. You also learn note taking, you learn child development, you learn the history of mental health, you learn how diagnosis or mental health conditions have occurred. So there's a lot of information that you learn. It's very, very interesting. Abnormal psychology, sex, I think is abnormal sexual psychology or sex therapy. Some people become sex therapists. Some people become child therapists, so everybody, and then there's test and measurements. You learn about test and measurements, how test and measurements are used. So there's a broad spectrum of a lot of things that you learn within the master's program, and then you have, mine was a Master of Arts in Psychology with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy. So the families became the units, or the couples became the units. And then I actually went and got my doctor's degree, which is a Doctor of Education, not philosophy. I'm not a psychologist. I hold a Doctor of Education in counseling psychology with an emphasis in counselor education and supervision. So my specialization is educating counselors. Like I would be on an academic, on a master's or a doctoral level, teaching therapists how to be therapists. I would teach academically. I can create programs. I can write books, create programs, and also is research based. So you learn how to research, you learn how to present information, and people take that and they specialize in what they want to specialize in. Coaching and then of course licensed. I'm a licensed mental health therapist. I am licensed under the state of Washington, which means I am board licensed, meaning that I had to do my internship, and then after my internship, you have to do your hours in. So internship meaning you sit up under a supervisor while you learn to apply those skills, like you learn the theories of counseling, different theorists and how they theorized, the Freudian, the different, I think it's Bowenian, different types of theorists and how they present, how they come up with the dynamics of family therapy or whatever, then you also learn modalities. Modalities meaning like cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. So different types that may fit your way of doing counseling and what fits you find one that you work with at that time. Now, along with that, once you complete school, then you do it's your pre-license hours. And so you have to work with an agency where they're supervising your hours, and you're being supervised and being taught how to do professional counseling. And in the state of Washington, it's 3,000 hours. I think 3 years, 3,000 hours, or 2 years. I think it's 3 years. It's 3,000 hours, which includes paperwork, which includes note taking, supervision, diagnosing, all the things that you have to learn how to do. And so it's very intensive. It's fun. It's very intensive. And you learn so many different things and work with so many different people. When I was trained underneath a psychiatrist who taught me the medical side of the house. And so I had the opportunity to work with medical professionals, doctors that taught me the mental, not just the mental health, but the medical portion of the physiological portion, how to refer people out, what to look for, TBI, brain. So the psychiatrist taught me the medical part of it. She taught me the assessment portion of it. And so I was able to do assessments, and I was able to refer people out and what to look for. Now, and that is regulated under the board, the Department of Health in the state of Washington. My license is under there, and it's governed by the state, which requires, I think, every 2 years, 36 hours of continuing education. And so along with that, I also advise those of you to join different boards or different associations. For example, you have the American Counseling Association, ACA. You have the American Psychological Association, APA. I belong to the American Mental Health Counselor Association, but each one of them has strict ethical guidelines. You pay a fee, an annual fee, and they have strict ethical guidelines. They have training that comes up that teach you the newest things that come out. So therapists are constantly learning. And as we learn, we also teach. You teach the client, and so because of the fact that we contract with insurance companies, we provide mental health counseling, meaning that we dig into your history. We find out, historically how you develop, how this disorder developed, how did you get depression, things to do to help, behavior activation, medication compliance, and sometimes it's a few sessions, sometimes it's longer sessions, but then you collaborate with medical professionals and those that are prescribers. And so this is all in the life of the therapist. Now, a coach, on the other hand, coaching, actually, you don't have to be trained to be a coach. You can call yourself a coach and start giving people advice, which really ethically, for those of us that are trained within the mental health field, we're almost appalled because of the fact that we spend so much time being trained and making sure that we're ethical, that we don't damage people, because we also have to understand HIPAA laws, Privacy Act laws. You have to know, when it comes to the medical professional or that profession, how not to hurt or injure an individual, and understanding the difference between a mental health disorder versus, in coaching. Coaching, which is not regulated the same way that counseling is. And I advise, if you want to go into coaching and you don't want to go through all the education of a mental health counselor, I highly advise to find a board certified program or something that provides you with certification, that holds you accountable for what you do and what you help, because you can cause more injury than you can cause help. Well, with coaches, their whole perspective is to set goals. And then to set smaller goals to achieve bigger goals. They get you from one place to another, and they work with you as a team. Coaches are almost more like teachers, as those that more of the professionals that advise. And another thing is, even with coaching, what I found was I went through the certification program to see the difference between the two, and realized that when I was in the military, that's actually what military leadership is trained to do, is to coach. Now, we called it counseling, but we were actually coaching soldiers. And so we were coaching, they were setting their goals. And then because we had already achieved a lot of those goals, we were teaching them how to achieve those goals by breaking down in smaller goals to get to achieve that goal. And every day, not every day, but every month we would counsel or coach and sit down to see what goals have been achieved, where do you need to go, what do you need to sustain. And so that was really coaching. And so that's what coaching is, to help people set goals, to get them to a particular place, to set a goal, to get smaller goals, to create. For example, if your goal is to become a counselor, and you want a coach to help you to become a counselor. So the goals, would be, we set the goals to, okay, this is what you want to do. What classes do you need to take to achieve this? What is the ultimate goal? You want to be a doctor, you want to do this, these are the experiences that you need to have. This is what you need to do. This is where you need to get training at. So that's what coaching is. So what happens is a lot of times coaches cross over, and especially those that have not been trained, because when you've been trained by those that are certified or board certified, and you get the professional training, it teaches you ethical guidelines, and it teaches you how not to cross over, because you could be trying to assist someone, and in actuality they need a counselor because they have mental health issues, post-traumatic stress, ADHD, bipolar disorder. So you have to know how to recognize that. Well, for a individual that is doing coaching that has a mental health background, we know how to distinguish the difference. And so that is the difference between the coaching and the counseling. What does it take to do work like this? So as I said, when you go through this program, you have to make up in your mind what it is that what is your goal? What is it that you're trying to do? Now, for me, I counsel everyone. I no longer counsel children, because that really wasn't my thing. Even though I had the experience in doing it, I worked as a family preservation service provider, and I worked with the Department of Social and Health Services. So I had to go to court. Oftentimes, I had to work with children that were in foster care, coming out of foster care, going back home. I was teaching parents how to parent, teaching couples how to be parents, do couples counseling, and that's what I did when I was working for my for the marriage and family therapy. Later on, I moved to mental health, where I was learning about the mental health, medication. I worked with it wasn't an agency, it was a mental health care. And so one of the things that I would suggest is, number one, because I counsel everyone. So I don't just counsel those people that are victims of or survivors of narcissist abuse, because in actuality, you're dealing with domestic violence. But I interested myself, and I got training while I was in the military, as I pulled out my papers to see what I got. So I did, the first thing that I did was I got training as a drug and alcohol coordinator. Then I became an equal opportunity representative while I was in the military. I was going to school, still doing my thing. Then I went and got training as a unit victim advocate. So I was a unit victim advocate for sexual assault, so a unit victim advocate. And then later on, because that's what my interest was, working with victims, and so I was doing the basic trainings. And so I went through the YWCA, and I completed 30 hours of domestic violence victims training. I also went to what was called Domestic Abuse Women's Network Certificate of Training. And so I'm just telling you guys, some of the things that you may want to add into your repertoire to do stuff like this. So I became a facilitator. I got trained to be a facilitator, a support group facilitating training. And then I also went and I got the 33 hours of basic sexual assault training. So you get the basic information, right? So after I started doing that, I was working with more of this. So I was not aware of the domestic violence at the time. I was working with people that had been abused. And so I was able to identify the abuse, get them services, get them connected to Victims Advocate, get them into group, into support groups, get them the legal assistance they needed, and connect them within the community. But there was always something missing. And so when I began to study, because of my own experiences, but I was very passionate about helping people, but I couldn't understand that sometimes you talk to people, and a lot of you that have been survivors of narcissist abuse, you talk to people, but they just don't quite get it. And I couldn't figure out, because people were still being victimized, by family members. They were being victimized within the court system. They're being re-victimized, so constantly being re-victimized. They're telling their story. No one is believing them because it sounds so dramatic, And then I began to look into, because, a lot, as I am a very analytic thinker. And so with my own experience, I began looking in the DSM at the abnormal personality disorder, because most of you that were in these relationships understand something just ain't right. Something is not right. I even went and got my clinical certification in trauma, as a trauma professional, to learn about trauma. What does it do to the body? What does abuse do to the body? What does abuse, when it happens in childhood? And so I began to study this, and I began to review my own life. I began to talk to people as they're coming in, and I'm doing assessment. My assessments became more, I became more inquisitive. What happened? How did this happen? And what I found was there was a whole nother language. Well, domestic violence, narcissist abuse is domestic violence. And what I began to determine, which many of you have, is that, people were being abused, but it was just a uniqueness about how the abuse was occurring, until I was studying the manual, and I kept thinking like, okay, what these symptoms that everyone keeps talking about, or how they're doing these certain things, fits into a category, and I started looking at borderline personality disorder. Then I started looking at narcissism. So I played with narcissism and borderline, and then I began to do research, and I began to see more things about people being abused by a narcissist. And so as I begin to research, and a lot of this requires research, you begin to research, you begin to realize people were being abused by an individual that possibly, we have to say allegedly, you just can't say they have, but most of us that have been in relationships do understand, because you're aware of the symptoms. So nobody can tell you any different, because you've had the experience, and no one can take that experience away from you. But the symptoms and the behaviors of narcissists, and so those with narcissism, there we go. And so I began to study, and as I began to study, I began to talk to people, I began to read comments, and I said, oh my gosh, all these people have had the same experiences. And as I began, I realized that there was a whole language that existed within, speaking about the narcissism. Now, one of the things that I do recommend is that before any of you, a lot of you have been through it, and you really do want to help people, but you can't help people until you help yourself first. A lot of you are dealing with post-traumatic stress, you're dealing with complex post-traumatic stress. And so a lot of times there's a few reasons why people want to get on camera or want to help people, because you're trying to resolve your own issues through other people first. You have to resolve your issues. You have to get a good counselor, and they'll let you know if you have a good mentor, you have a good coach, you have a good counselor. They'll let you know whether or not you're ready to do this, and always before you do it, run it by someone, because sometimes people can see beyond where you see. And then you have to know that when a hurting person is talking and trying to help people, you can actually hurt people more than you can help people. And before you take on clients, you got to make sure that you know what you're doing. Like I said, you can start off with blogs, but I would suggest getting additional training. If you do not have your license in mental health social work or clinical social work, I would highly recommend going and getting finding a board certified course in coaching to give you the details of coaching. But you have to make sure, because when you connect with people, when you talk on a public forum, when you begin to do public speaking, when you begin to do, working with people, you will come across narcissists. Everybody on these channels are not, survivors. A lot of people on here are narcissists. And if they're not narcissists, a lot of them do have borderline personality disorder. Some of them will stalk you. Some of them will watch you. Some of them will, there's a lot of things that people do where you have to be safe, because when you're dealing with mental health, safety is also number one for a counselor or a coach, because you're dealing with people sometimes, and I'm not saying everyone, don't get me wrong, everybody with depression, that's not right, but a lot of times people are unstable in their thoughts, in their behaviors, and especially if they feel offended, if they feel they've been hurt, they've been abandoned. There are a lot of things people do that is very out of character, or, as abnormal, and so you have to make sure that you're safe. You have someone to be accountable to. I have a mentor that I'm accountable to, so I don't just come out here and just do this all willy-nilly, by myself without being accountable to someone. So I make sure that I am accountable to my mentor, and she makes corrections, she trains me, she mentors me to make sure, if there's mistakes I've made and what I've said, she goes back and we talk about it, and then I make those corrections. So you got to be accountable to someone. You just don't get out there and you do it by yourself. Make sure you are accountable to someone and you trust that person to know that when they're giving you information, they're not giving you information to hurt you. They're giving you information to help you. And you can't get if you get your feelings hurt real easy when you're doing something like this. You're going to get your feelings hurt a lot when you're making videos and when you're helping, when you're coaching people. Everyone's not going to like you. Everybody's not going to like you. And then some people like you too much. So hopefully this has helped a little bit. And for those of you that have asked, I have had people ask, what are my credentials? And so today I'm going to take you to my wall so that you can see my credentials, because some of you have asked me, and I'm going to show you. So right here is my doctor's degree. That's my Doctor of Education. Right here is my master's degree. Right here is my certified clinical trauma professional. And down here was my life coaching certificate, but I chose not to renew it anymore because of the fact that I'm already licensed and under the strictest guidelines for counseling. So I'm under the strictest guidelines. So it really was, to me, it was almost like a waste of time because I've had thousands of dollars worth of training in the military to do that. And so I kind of let the certification go. And so because I'm already under the strictest guidelines under my license. And so hopefully this has helped a little bit. And hopefully you guys feel more confident knowing that somebody asked me if I was a real doctor, and I am, and what are my credentials? And so there go my credentials. Yeah, my credentials. But that is just some information to let you guys know, some of the background of how I got into it and what I recommend you do, because, you just don't jump on the scene without education. You study, and then when you come out, you're going to be on a roll. You're going to be on a roll. It's a lot of work, but I think it's only fair that if you're helping people, that they get quality people, quality coaches, quality mental health professionals, quality people that know what they're talking about, quality people that is providing you with good information. If I don't know, I usually take the time and research it, to get an understanding of what I'm talking about, because that's the part of the Doctor of Education. You're an educator. You educate people. You educate counselors. You educate people, and breaking it down into simple language so that everybody can understand. So hopefully that has helped a little bit for those of you that are pursuing a career, or you're coaching or public speaking or vlogging or podcasting. Make sure that when you're giving people information, you're just not throwing out something, just so, people, you get numbers on that. No, people are not as dumb as people think they are. You just don't throw out information. There are people that are deep thinkers. They're very deep thinkers. So you can't just throw out superficial or just surface information. Some people need some very deep information because they're deep thinkers. And so hopefully this has helped you guys. Thank you so much as always. Today is November. What day is it today? Today is November got my calendar here and got it on the wrong day. Today is November 27, 2019. So I don't know who's going to get the video whenever, but it's the day before Thanksgiving. And so I'm going to make sure I come back on tomorrow. I'm going to try to come on live so that we can all connect for Thanksgiving. Hopefully some of you guys are already starting to cook. I can already smell it through here. I'm not cooking. I'm going over family's house. And so hopefully you guys are already starting to cook. You're starting to make those pies. For those of you that do not have any family to go to and nowhere to go, I recommend go get you a plate. Go get a plate from somebody, or go buy you something to eat. Cook yourself something to eat and watch Netflix. Let that be your day that you prop your legs up, enjoy yourself, put on some fragrances. If you got a fireplace, I know some of you guys are in the hot regions, put on a fireplace, put on a movie. It's going to be quiet. Just enjoy yourself. It's okay. You don't have to go out the house. Enjoy yourself. Those of you that don't want to go to a triggering toxic family, enjoy yourself at home. Create your own traditions, or take yourself out to eat. There are a lot of restaurants that are open during Thanksgiving. They know that people are coming out to eat. In the very beginnings of my life in the military, when I was away from my children, I actually had a group of friends, and we actually went to Burger King. My first year away from home in the military, me and my friends actually went to Burger King for Thanksgiving. And then after that, we had our own apartment. So we started going to see, we created our own traditions. Create your own traditions. If you want peace and quiet, and this is the first time you have peace and quiet, and for some of you guys, this is your first year, your first Christmas, your first Thanksgiving without the narcissist. It's a good thing. It may be hard, but you can make it through, and we are cheering you on. And that's why I want to make sure that I come on live tomorrow. I'm going to try to come on live tomorrow, okay? Just so I can check in with you guys and make sure you guys are doing okay. And I want you to enjoy yourself, okay? And if you have not already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is Dr. Carmen Bryant, Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. You can also check me out on Facebook. I have my professional Facebook page, which is Psychological Health Consultants and Services. And then I have my book Facebook page, which is Overcoming Narcissist Abuse. Hit the like on both of them. I do share videos. Sometimes I do share when I do public speaking, like within a church setting or in other settings. A lot of times I'll put that on my book Facebook page. For those of you that have asked about my book, you can go on Amazon or Barnes & Noble and you can order it. My book is called Unmasking the Illusion of Perfection. Let me grab the card, okay? So it is Unmasking the Illusion of Perfection. This is my book cover. So you guys look for that book cover. You can also get it from Westbow Press for those of you that are out of country. Sometimes somebody said they were having problems with Amazon or Barnes & Noble sending it out of country. I have, family here in Brazil, in the UK, in Australia, in Brazil, in Germany, in Canada, and Mexico, in the Philippines, Cambodia, Korea. Where else do we have some people at? We have them in Mali, Italy. We have Italy in the house. We have France in the house. Where else do we have? Oh gosh, I hope I didn't forget anybody. Where else do we have? Oh, there were so many beautiful places and just beautiful people. Thank you so much from all across South Africa, Kenya. Thank you guys so much for being here with me. This is my book, and so if you want to get it sent out of country, you are welcome to go to Westbow Press. It's Westbow Press, and you can order your book from Westbow Press, and they will send it out of country, and it is Unmasking the Illusion of Perfection. Make sure you order the book. Make sure you get it as a stocking stuffer. It's not a very expensive. It's an easy read. Teens can read it. Some of these teens are already going through it. So we need to educate them, because a lot of them, we can get them some education that we did not get, when we were younger. And we can avoid them having to go through some of the things that, we went through. And look where we're at learning about it. Get them reading the book. It's not a hard read. It's an easy read. It's not a hard read. It's a Christian book, but the Christian portion of it is my encouragement to you and what the Bible says about who you are. And so if you are not a Christian, you are not a believer. A lot of people have said, I'm not a believer, but you got the principles out of the book because they're stories of real people. They're real experiences, what they were thinking, how they were groomed when they were younger, how they were abused when they were younger, how their children were abused, how they got away, and how they were thinking. They had homicide and suicide on their mind, how they were thinking, all the things that were said to them that perpetuated them always getting into a relationship with a narcissist. And so you'll find your story in there. So take the principles out of the book, share it with people, and give it to people. We got to get it out there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Also, look underneath the YouTube channel and you will find a sponsor link called betterhelp.com/Dr. Carmen for those of you that are looking for a licensed therapist, but you can't get out of the home. You don't want to get out of the house. You feel more comfortable doing Skype or telephone or online counseling. For those of you that are in rural areas or do not have transportation, it is a nominal fee. I think the first week is free. And then if you have financial difficulties, you let them know. They'll give it to you at a discounted price. You can vet the counselors. Look for those that are professional, licensed counselor, understand trauma, that understand abuse, parental alienation, those type of terms. When you say, do you understand narcissist abuse? Some of them might, but some of them may not, and so just, do you understand post-traumatic stress, psychological abuse, look for those terms, when you're looking. But hey, I need you to check it out. Get you some counseling. Now you know the difference between counseling and coaching. Some of you need counseling, not coaching. And then also those of you that have asked, I do have a Cash App and a PayPal for those of you that wanted to donate. I sincerely appreciate all of you guys. I hope you have a wonderful evening. For those of you chefs out there that are over there cooking and creating all this good food, and who over here making collard greens? Somebody's making collard greens and black-eyed peas. I'll tear up some collard greens, some collard greens and black-eyed peas. Somebody down there in Texas, in the South down there in Alabama, you guys are hooking it up with those peach cobblers and those, sweet potato pies, and oh my goodness. boy, I'm gonna be a little fat tick tomorrow. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I am on my way out of the office. I'm going to get me some rest because I need to get my energy stored up to eat tomorrow. It takes a lot of energy to eat with my family. So I need to get my energy up and going. You know, this right here, it takes a lot to do that, you know. So, hey, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I love each and every one of you. You guys go be great and have a great Thanksgiving. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll come on live, okay? So you guys take care of yourselves.